what's going on, everybody? This is David Brooks, the Cadillac Counselor, coming at you to tell you a piece of my mind. We have probably about 14, 13 people already. I've already done their videos, and I have a couple today and a couple at the beginning of the week. And I think we're going to be close to having everybody's video done. So you have no reason not to understand what's going on with the Board of Education. And I would love for you to subscribe if you can, so that you can even see more videos in the future whenever we really start to look at the politics of our children and especially the mental health. So I do have one more person today, and it's Navian. Did I say that correct?
Navian.
Navian. All right, Navian Scarlett. And she will be here to tell you a little bit about herself. So I'm not going to waste any more time, and I'm going to give it to her.
Hi, I'm Navian Scarlett. I'm running for the Frederick County Board of Education, and I am a Frederick High School graduate in 2019. I am mainly running on gun violence prevention because on the night of back to school night to enter my freshman year of high school at Frederick High School, there was a shooting at that basketball game that same night in 2015. I have been working with gun violence prevention organizations such as Students Demand Action ever since to help in the fight to prevent gun violence. And in addition with that, I also am focused on mental health resources being available and also how we can make it affordable and accessible for students, especially along with that gun violence perspective, that there could be things going on in students' communities that not necessarily at the school, and they still need that support at school, making sure that's available for them. In addition, I'm also I'm also focusing on, academic excellence and making sure that our curriculum is appropriate and is actually preparing students for assessment, that we're making sure that we have the right resources for them and we're able to properly prepare them so that's not affecting the overall scores at the end. And bullying prevention is very important to me. Just our policies are great, but from a student perspective, there could be some reformation on how it is done that I think would be more effective. So I'm bringing the student perspective to the board.
Very good. I'm in the mental health field, so I love those types of conversations. They ring in my ear. I mean, I just love to hear that someone is taking up that banner of getting that mental health into with the children. The one question I wanted to ask you is that with the gun violence and let's just say discipline in the schools, how do you think that we can attack this a little differently so that we can get a better outcome?
I think one of the main things as far as it being in school is also a lot of how we pay attention to our students. How we, how teachers, report back or like how they pay attention to certain students, what resources the school even has available to offer support to students. I think that can make a huge impact in lots of the stories we've heard across the nation of we didn't know or they were a loner or we noticed these things but nothing was really done. I think changing that in the school system of how we support our students that we notice showing certain behaviors and how we can say we did at least try to help or we were able to help those students, that could definitely change overall how school shootings happen and definitely bring down the how many school shootings happen.
You were talking uh, about just really taking a look at the students. Um, I know FCPS is a really good district, and there are students that are highly achieving, and there are children who are barely being, I would say, passed along until they graduate. Can you bring something to the table to help some of these problems and even the ones who are really achieving? How can you improve their life also?
Well, I think, I'll start with the overachieving first. I think with those students, we could definitely connect with giving information about certain programs that are available to them for them to continue to outreach their skills and their academic excellence. For example, when I was in school, I remember there's this project called Project Paradigm, where students have an opportunity to win, I believe it's about a full scholarship for college, but they basically have to use STEM skills to solve a real world problem. And so I've seen lots of students come together as a group or even like a small team, and they've come up with solutions to problems that we have in the world right now, which I think is amazing because, first of all, they're solving a real world problem that can be implemented, and also they're being recognized for their academic excellence through the scholarship. There's lots of programs like that. I think it would be great if, school boards, do their research and make sure those kinds of programs are being told to students and made available for students to enter. In addition, when I was in school, I also was given the opportunity to compete in the Letters About Literature contest, in which I was a finalist for Frederick County. The first time I did it, it was in middle school, and then I competed by myself alone, and I was a finalist once again. But opening up those kinds of opportunities in a student's interest can really facilitate growth and allow them to see how they can have impact and how they can improve and um, show their skills outside of the school building, not just within the school. And then for our students who may be struggling, I think maybe we need to have a closer look at what programs we have available as far as helping them not just pass along, but help like find out what the problem is, find out how we can help. Sometimes I know a lot of students, it's not necessarily them, it may be environment from home that's affecting their learning. I've known plenty of students who are pretty much have to be an adult in their household and is working a job and they're just really stressed and tired. And there's all different kinds of situations. So what can we facilitate in the school where we can offer resources or offer something to help them? If it's about focus, how can we offer them extra time at school to so they can actually sit and focus on their lessons? And also, how can we find out what exactly is affecting them from reaching the milestones we want them to reach? Is it lack of interest? Is it the subject matter? Do we need to incorporate more tutoring opportunities or more one-on-one opportunities for students? And how could we implement that? I think that would be very important.
Very good. Um, what you're talking about is going to cost a lot of money, and they're talking about that we're pinching pennies right now, trying to get as much as we can into this budget. Um, what could you bring to the table to kind of help out with this budget issue?
So I did happen to go and see one of the budget meetings, and the main thing that I've seen that's affecting our budget is outsourcing our employees. So that is taking what literally from their mouth is what they said during the meeting was that they are costing 2 times more than what hiring one of our own would cost. So considering that there's quite a few sections of the public school system that is outsourced, if we are able to take down that cost of 2 times more, then that's additional funds we can put into other programs like special education, funding some of the things I've discussed, and even funding more staff to handle workload for certain sections, especially special education. My plan really for the budget is to recruit and retain in a similar fashion that we saw with STEM. Like if I open my phone right now, if I'm on Facebook or Instagram, there's something about STEM, the benefits, competitive wage, and a program that may even be fully funded for me to complete STEM. We can do the same thing with education careers, is telling them what's offered, showing it can be competitive wage, and then we can also use additional funds to make the wages higher. As with the blueprint, that could be a way that we could actually implement what we need to implement, but it's not never going to be something that can be done in a day or like one meeting. It's going to be over the long term. And I think over the long term, if we're able to get more people interested, like our senior, junior, senior students, having someone go in and tell them the benefits of being part of education and why they should use their skills towards that, that could be our recruitment. And then retaining would also be, with the blueprint, I saw it's going to be a more competitive field. So the good staff that we already have, we could offer programs to them for them to um, do training to bring their education level to the level of which the new people we're bringing in is, so we're able to recruit and retain, and then we would ultimately, hopefully, have minimal, if at some point, no outsourcing, and that would definitely help our budget.
Very good. Sounds like you put some thought into it. I was seeing that you are really into the mental health of students. There are a lot of debates happening right now in education, especially within the gender conversation. Whether it should be a binary conversation or if it should even be addressed in the schools. Some people, even on one side of the coin, says this is a mental health problem that needs to be worked out through the mental health route. How would you say that FCPS, if you were on the board, how would you take a look at the gender conversations?
From what I know, just from being in school and that being a conversation, I know that what's affecting most students' mental health as far as the gender conversation is really how it's perceived by other people or the feeling of rejection. I actually read, because I am a psychology major, I actually had an opportunity to read an article from Psychology Today that said rejection is interpreted from the brain in the same place that we feel physical pain. So if you take that into account, when you're rejected from a group, how that affects someone in that same part of the brain, then you can kind of understand why it's such a big issue to be accepted. And of course, not everyone is going to be accepting of everything that makes someone different, but we need to make sure that, I believe we should facilitate an environment of what the world should look like in school, a place of community, of diversity, and a feeling of acceptance in the school, so that when we send these citizens out into the world, whether they stay in our community or move along, they are our future leaders that know what the world can be, because that's how they were essentially raised and that's how they were educated in that environment. And taking that into account, I see no problem with anyone identifying the way they want to identify, because when they go into the world, they're gonna live by their truth, and I want them to. I don't want school to be the first place where they feel like they have to hide themselves. They should be able to feel that, at least feel that freedom in one safe place to be truly themselves. And when they're not focused on trying to figure out who they are or who should know who they really are, they can also focus on their academics. They're not so stressed out and worried about outside things.
Okay, very good. That moves me to the next topic, which is bullying. Because I would say that a lot of the children have been suffering from bullying. I've heard about it on the bus. I've heard about it in the classroom. I've heard about it in the hallways. And really, social media. Some kids are even bullied outside of the school because of their alignment in school. So how would you go about tackling the concept of bullying in the schools?
I think it really takes, first of all, it takes a lot of creativity and innovation for this answer, for the answer to the bullying problem, because we now deal with social media. I think a lot of it is going to be, we should incorporate more than just maybe one time during the year you see a video about bullying. It should, I think it should be something that's continuous. Like every class you have something about bullying. Like, I think that it should be something continuous, because if we remind people essentially of the issue, but also remembering that it has that aspect of social media. So we need to teach our students about outside influences and how to handle that. We do a really good job of, having those resources when it comes to like not doing saying no to drugs, but let's say no to negativity online. Let's teach them what they should not accept from other people, but also online, that these are not the standards. Because also, we're putting them into the world thinking this certain way about social media, and then that causes essentially a rebound effect into adulthood. So I think repeating and teaching our students that these are the standards and you don't need to conform to society or what society says you should or shouldn't be, that can definitely help with the mentality of our young people, that they can understand that something someone says online, it may still affect them for sure, but they'll have a different perspective on it. As someone who was brought up that way, of having sit downs and having everything explained in that way in a more mature sense, then I was able to, deal with what I needed to deal with as far as negativity from other people and bullying myself. But I was able to come to this standpoint of like, I'm not going to accept this and I'm going to find a way to remove this negativity from myself. And especially with social media, we see a lot of silence from students. They don't want to say anything. And I really want to remove that layer because it can be really effective in bullying, that we don't let our children be silenced, that they should speak up and keep speaking up until someone does something.
Listen, there's 17 people running, and during the primaries, they can pick, I think, up to 6. Why should someone, if they're looking at all of these names, why should they pick your name?
I am very focused on what is right for my community and what taking every voice into account. With my with what I've seen in the schools, I see direct issues that I have confirmed with young neighbors who are seniors now, that it's still happening, and that even what has been happening when I was in school is actually getting worse. So I have a perspective of a student looking outward, seeing what we had in place that is seen as working, but how we can reform that. I have a different perspective as a younger person coming onto the board, because I was also brought up in a way of having creative and innovative ways of solving problems. And I do think I bring that to the board as far as solving our problems. And I think that I can bridge the gap between the students and the board, because we won't know unless students really come up and tell us. But I know that there is, speaking to students, I know there is that fear of the people on the board not understanding what they're really going through. And there is that gap for sure. There is that age gap where they feel like you didn't really deal with this when you were in school, so you're not going to understand why it's so important now. And also, especially that gap of school safety as well, which is not nationally, a lot of students feel like the people that we have in power, just they didn't grow up having that fear in school, so they won't understand why it's so crucial. And I bring that perspective to the board.
Hey, young lady, I'm glad that you are focused on mental health. I hope that you continue to push that, and especially gun violence. I don't want my kids to be going to school and not feel safe. So if that's something that you're bringing to the table, I commend you to keep that banner going, because we want to feel safe, and I think it's just awesome. So I appreciate you coming in for an interview, popping on with me, and I wish you the best in your run.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.